Imagine a world where the sun itself was once a god, where the rivers had voices, and where the earth could bear children as easily as she bore mountains. A time before science, before logic, when the stars overhead were not distant suns, but divine beings, each with their own passions, flaws, and rivalries. This was the world of the ancient Greeks, a civilization that crafted a mythology so vast, so layered, and so powerful that it still shapes our imagination thousands of years later. Tonight, we embark on a journey through the entirety of Greek mythology, from the first breath of chaos to the last echoes of Troy, from the Titan wars that shook the heavens to the tender tragedies of doomed lovers, from the madness of Dionysus to the wisdom of Athena. We will explore the gods, the monsters, the heroes, and the myths that form the spiritual and cultural backbone of the ancient Greek world. This isn't just a collection of stories, it's an entire universe, one where gods ruled with thunderbolts, heroes carved their legends through impossible trials, and mortals often paid the price for curiosity, ambition, or hubris. By the end of this journey, you will see how these tales were more than entertainment. They were reflections of human fears, desires, and eternal questions about fate, justice, and the meaning of life itself. So, settle in, and let's begin where all things begin, with the very first breath of creation. Chaos and the birth of the cosmos. In the beginning, there was nothing. Not emptiness, not silence, but chaos. To the Greeks, chaos was not merely a void, but a vast, formless expanse from which all things emerged. It was both terrifying and full of potential, a swirling mass of possibility where the seeds of existence lay hidden. Unlike later religions that imagine creation as the act of a single deity, Greek mythology presents the cosmos as something that simply came into being, unfolding naturally from chaos like a flower from a bud. From this endless expanse arose the first primordial beings. Gaia, the earth, solid and fertile, stretched herself wide to form the ground upon which all life would walk. Alongside her came Tartarus, the deep abyss, a dark pit far below, where monsters and souls would later be cast. Then came Eros, not the playful god of love we think of later, but a raw primal force of attraction, the energy that bound the universe together and drove creation forward. Night Nyx emerged too, cloaked in darkness, and Erebus, the embodiment of shadow, crept across existence. The Greeks believed these primordial deities were not abstractions but living beings, immense and incomprehensible. Night could be imagined as a goddess with black wings who flew across the sky, spreading dreams and terror. Gaia was the ever-present earth beneath one's feet, nurturing, but also unyielding. These were not human-like gods yet, but vast powers personified so that mortals could grasp their existence. Chaos, then, was not defeated or replaced. Instead, it became the backdrop, the stage upon which all other gods and myths would play out. And as the cosmos began to take shape, Gaia looked to the sky and bore Uranus, the starry heavens. In their union of earth and sky, the foundation for the universe as the Greeks knew it was laid. The endless cycles of birth, struggle, and succession were about to begin. The story of Greek mythology always starts here, in the tension between form and formlessness, between order and wild potential, and from here, the drama of gods and titans begins to unfold. Gaia, Uranus, and the first generation of titans. With Gaia as the earth and Uranus as the sky, the cosmos was no longer a formless mass, but a structured world. From their union came the first generation of titans, mighty beings, larger and more powerful than anything yet imagined. The titans were not merely children, but embodiments of the natural order. Oceanus, for instance, was the vast river encircling the world, while Hyperion embodied the light of the sun. Cus represented wisdom, Crius the constellations, and Iapetus mortality itself. But the titans were not alone. Gaia also bore other children, the Cyclopes, one-eyed giants of immense strength, and the Hecatonchires, monstrous beings with 100 hands and 50 heads each. These children terrified Uranus. Though he was a ruler of the heavens, he feared their strength and unpredictability. And so, in a desperate attempt to control the future, Uranus forced these offspring back into Gaia's womb, burying them deep inside the earth. This act of cruelty wounded Gaia deeply. She was the earth itself, and with her monstrous children trapped inside her, she grew heavy, restless, and enraged. Her sorrow turned to anger, and she began to plot rebellion against Uranus. She fashioned a great sickle of adamant, sharp and unyielding, and called upon her Titan children to aid her. Most recoiled in fear, unwilling to raise a hand against their father. But one stepped forward, Cronus, the youngest and most ambitious of the Titans. Cronus agreed to carry out Gaia's plan. With the sickle in hand, he ambushed Uranus one night as he descended to lie with Gaia. With a swift, brutal stroke, Cronus castrated his father, ending his reign and casting the heavens into turmoil. From the blood of Uranus that fell upon the earth sprang the Furies, goddesses of vengeance, and the giants, fierce beings who would one day challenge Olympus itself. From his severed genitals cast into the sea, foam arose, and from that foam, in time, Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, was born. The fall of Uranus was the first great succession in Greek mythology, the cycle of father against son, power gained through violence, and fate unfolding despite fear. Cronus now stood as ruler of the cosmos, the king of the Titans. But as with all rulers in these myths, his reign was destined not to last. The rise of the Titans and the fall of Uranus. With Uranus cast down, the Titans rose to prominence as the new rulers of the cosmos. Cronus, having seized power with Gaia's sickle, became the supreme leader, establishing what the Greeks called the Golden Age. This was an era remembered as one of peace and abundance, where humans lived freely without toil or sorrow, and the land provided without struggle. Yet, beneath this golden veneer lay the seeds of paranoia and violence that would come to define Cronus' reign. Cronus had seen the downfall of his father and understood that power was always precarious. The blood of Uranus still stained the earth, a reminder that sons could overthrow their fathers just as easily as he had. A prophecy soon spread, whispered by Gaia and the Moirai the Fates, that Cronus too would be undone by one of his children. Fear gnawed at him, and he resolved to prevent the cycle from continuing, no matter the cost. He married his sister Rhea, who bore him children: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. But Cronus, terrified of losing his throne, swallowed each child whole the moment they were born. To him, devouring them was not murder, but containment, a way of keeping them locked inside his body, unable to rise against him. Rhea wept as one by one her children disappeared into Cronus' gullet, her grief growing heavier with every birth. Desperate to save at least one child, Rhea sought help from Gaia, just as Cronus had once done. When her sixth child, Zeus, was born, she devised a plan. Wrapping a stone in swaddling clothes, she presented it to Cronus, who swallowed it without question. Meanwhile, the infant Zeus was spirited away to the island of Crete, hidden in a cave on Mount Ida, where nymphs and the goat Amalthea raised him in secret. To cover his cries, the curate's armored dancers clashed their shields and spears, drowning out the sound. The stage was now set. Cronus ruled, secure in his belief that he had defeated fate, but in swallowing his children, he had only delayed the inevitable. Within the belly of the Titan, the gods of Olympus were alive, waiting, and soon their liberation would shake the very foundations of the cosmos. Cronus and Rhea, the age of the Golden Rule. Cronus' reign is often remembered in myth as the golden age of mankind. Mortals, though still fragile, lived lives free from hunger and strife. They did not yet know the burden of agriculture, for the earth provided in abundance. Death came gently, and even in death, their spirits lingered as guardians over the living. It was an idyllic vision, a time of balance between the earth, sky, and sea. Yet even in this golden light, shadows crept. For the world of gods is never without conflict. The Titans, under Cronus' rule, spread across the cosmos. Oceanus encircled the world, his waters flowing endlessly. Hyperion guided the sun across the sky, while they brought the radiance of sight. Mnemosyne held memory, essential for storytelling and history, while Themis embodied divine law and order. Together, they were the forces of the universe, vast and unyielding. But unlike the later Olympians, the Titans were aloof, distant, and often indifferent to mortals. Rhea, meanwhile, was trapped in sorrow. Though she was revered as the mother of gods, her children were lost to Cronus' paranoia. She watched mortals thrive while her own offspring were swallowed into darkness. The grief hardened her resolve, and in her heart, she carried both love for her children and bitterness toward her husband. To Rhea, the Golden Age was gilded only for humans. For her, it was a time of loss and yearning. Cronus himself grew increasingly tyrannical. Though mortals prospered, he ruled the cosmos with suspicion, distrustful even of his siblings. He demanded obedience, and his paranoia shaped the order of the heavens. The once proud act of overthrowing Uranus became a memory he could not escape, for he feared the same fate would find him. His throne stood tall upon Mount Othrys, but he knew the higher one climbs, the greater the fall. And so, the Golden Age carried with it the tension of an unsustainable peace. For beneath its surface lay suppressed gods, secret prophecies, and a hidden child growing stronger far from Cronus' gaze. The seeds of rebellion had been planted, and soon they would sprout with fire and thunder. The prophecy of Cronus and the hidden child, Zeus. As Zeus grew in secret on Crete, stories of his survival spread quietly among those who served Rhea and Gaia. Though few dared to speak openly, whispers reached even the Titans. Some dismissed them as false rumors. Others sensed a destiny building in the shadows. For the Greeks, prophecy was never a possibility but an inevitability. Fate could be delayed, but never denied. Zeus was nurtured by Amalthea, the divine goat, whose milk gave him strength. Later myths even tell of him breaking off one of her horns, which became the cornucopia, the horn of plenty, a symbol of unending nourishment. The nymphs of the forest cared for him, and the curate's clanging shields became both a shield and a rhythm, marking the heartbeat of rebellion to come. In this hidden cradle, Zeus grew not only in body but in will, destined for greatness. Meanwhile, Cronus was not blind to his unease. He consulted oracles, questioned signs, and grew restless in his throne. Though he believed he had swallowed all threats, his dreams were troubled. He saw visions of storms, of lightning splitting the sky, of a child's hand wielding the sickle once used against Uranus. His paranoia deepened, and his cruelty sharpened. The Golden Age, once remembered fondly, began to fracture under his fear. When Zeus came of age, Gaia and Rhea revealed to him the truth of his birth and the fate awaiting him. He was told of his siblings imprisoned within Cronus, gods waiting for liberation. They urged him to take his place as leader, not merely for revenge, but to restore balance to the cosmos. To aid him, Metis, a goddess of wisdom and cunning, crafted a potion. This elixir, when given to Cronus, would force him to vomit up the children he had swallowed. Zeus returned in disguise, offering his father the potion mixed with honeyed drink. Cronus, unsuspecting, drank deeply. Soon, he convulsed, and one by one, the swallowed gods were released. Ischyr, Demeter, Ida Hades, and Poseidon, fully grown and furious. The Olympians had been freed, and with their liberation came the birth of a new order. The prophecy was unfolding, and the Titanomachy, the great war between Titans and Olympians, was about to begin. Zeus' rebellion. The Titanomachy begins. The story of Zeus' rebellion is one of the most dramatic turning points in Greek mythology. When Zeus came of age, hidden by Rhea from Cronus' devouring jaws, he began to plot the overthrow of his father. The world was still ruled by the Titans, children of Gaia and Uranus, who had long oppressed both the younger gods and humanity. But unlike his siblings, Zeus did not fear his father's power. Armed with cunning and the foresight of destiny, he devised a way to challenge the Titan order itself. His first step was liberating his brothers and sisters, whom Cronus had swallowed. With the help of Metis, a clever Titaness, Zeus gave Cronus a potion that forced him to vomit forth Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. The 6 children of Cronus were finally reunited. The act of liberation did not go unnoticed by the Titans. Cronus, furious at Zeus' defiance, rallied his kin to prepare for war. This conflict would not be a skirmish or a battle lasting days. It would span 10 years and shake the very foundations of the cosmos. The Olympians, though mighty, were few in number compared to the vast Titan host. Yet Zeus had an advantage. Unlike Cronus, he was willing to form alliances beyond bloodlines. He knew that power lay not only in brute strength, but in strategy and bonds of loyalty. The war that followed is known as the Titanomachy, the great clash between Titans and Olympians. Lightning, storms, and earthquakes became daily occurrences as the sky and earth trembled with each skirmish. Zeus wielded thunderbolts forged for him by hidden allies, but still, the Olympians struggled against the older, colossal Titans. Mountains were torn up and hurled as weapons, seas boiled from divine rage, and the stars themselves seemed dim during the height of the conflict. But the war was not only about violence, it was also about ideals. The Titans represented the old order, raw, untamed, and absolute authority resting in the hands of the few. The Olympians represented something new, a balance of realms, shared rulership, and a cosmic order that was more structured. To the ancient Greeks who told these stories, the Titanomachy was not only a myth of gods fighting, but also a reflection of how human societies struggled between tradition and change. The rebellion of Zeus was not yet complete, but the seeds of revolution had been sown. The Titans began to realize that the young Olympians were not mere children. They were a force of destiny, driven by prophecy, and guided by Zeus' unshakable will. The war would rage on, and the cosmos itself hung in the balance, the 100-handed ones and Cyclopes in battle. As the Titanomachy dragged on, the Olympians faced a grim reality. They were outmatched in sheer force. The Titans had numbers, size, and the advantage of experience. But the tide began to turn when Zeus sought out powerful allies imprisoned deep within the earth. These were the 100-handed ones, Hecatonchyres and the Cyclopes, cast into Tartarus by Uranus and later guarded by Cronus. The Hecatonchyres were monstrous beings of unimaginable strength. Each had 50 heads and 100 arms, capable of hurling mountains as if they were pebbles. Their names, Briareus, Cadus, and Gyges, struck terror into the Titans who once betrayed them. The Cyclopes, on the other hand, were one-eyed smiths of divine craft, known for their ability to forge weapons of unrivaled power. They were said to have created the first thunderbolt, a weapon Zeus would come to master. By freeing these mighty beings, Zeus gained not only allies, but also tools of war that reshaped the conflict. The Cyclopes gifted Poseidon his trident, capable of shaking the seas and splitting the earth, while Hades received the helm of invisibility, which allowed him to strike unseen. Zeus, of course, was given the thunderbolt, the blazing symbol of divine kingship. These weapons balanced the scales of battle and gave the Olympians a decisive edge. When the 100-handed ones entered the war, the very nature of combat changed. No longer were the Titans the largest beings on the battlefield. With their 100 arms, the Hecatonchyres rained boulders upon Cronus' forces, overwhelming even the strongest of Titan warriors. The clash became so violent that ancient poets claimed the earth groaned in agony, and rivers ran backward under the strain. This moment marked the shift from defense to offense for the Olympians. No longer were they scrambling for survival. They were pressing their advantage. The Titans, once thought invincible, found themselves staggering under the combined assault of gods, Cyclopes, and hundred-handed ones. The war was far from over, but Zeus' gamble had paid off. His leadership and willingness to embrace outsiders had secured weapons and allies that would make all the difference. The defeat of Cronus and the division of the cosmos. After 10 years of cataclysmic struggle, the Titanomachy reached its climax. The Olympians, now strengthened by their allies, launched a full-scale assault against Cronus and his followers. The battles became legendary, Zeus unleashing storms of lightning, Poseidon shattering the earth with his trident, Hades striking from the shadows with his helm of invisibility. Cronus, however, did not yield easily. Wielding his sickle, the same weapon he once used to overthrow Uranus, he fought fiercely against his children. The final battle was said to take place in Thessaly, where the mountains, Thrace, the Titan stronghold, and Olympus, home of the Olympians, seemed to clash themselves. The hundred-handed ones, hurling boulders faster than the eye could follow, buried the Titan ranks beneath avalanches of stone. Cronus and his most loyal allies, including Oedipus and Hyperion, were finally overwhelmed by the might of the Olympian coalition. With the Titans defeated, Zeus and his siblings faced the question of what to do with their fallen enemies. Gaia, their grandmother, urged mercy, but Zeus feared leaving them free to rise again. Thus, the Titans were cast into the depths of Tartarus, chained within a pit, surrounded by bronze gates, and guarded by the hundred-handed ones themselves. It was not death, but eternal imprisonment, a punishment as much as a safeguard for the new order of the cosmos. Once the war ended, the gods turned to the task of dividing the universe. Zeus claimed the sky and the role of king, seated upon the heights of Olympus. Poseidon took dominion over the seas, commanding waves, storms, and all creatures of the deep. Hades, though reluctant, accepted the underworld, becoming ruler over the realm of the dead. The earth itself was left as common ground, shared by all gods and men. This division was more than symbolic, it was the establishment of balance. The cosmos was no longer ruled by a single tyrant, but distributed among siblings, each powerful in their own realm. For the Greeks, this myth explained the natural order of the world. The storm in the sky, the trembling earth, the mysteries of the sea, and the shadow of death. Together, the Olympians had brought structure to chaos, and their reign began a new age. Establishing Olympus, the 12 Olympians, after the dust of the Titanomachy settled and the Titans were banished to Tartarus, the young gods turned to the task of creating a seat of power. They chose the soaring peak of Mount Olympus, the highest mountain in Greece, which pierced the heavens and was forever wreathed in clouds. Here, amidst golden halls and marble palaces, the gods built their eternal dwelling. Olympus became not just a home but a symbol, a place untouched by mortal decay, where the divine ruled with majesty. The Olympians were 12 in number, though their identities shifted across different traditions. At the core were Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Demeter, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Ares, Hephaestus, Hermes, and either Hestia or Dionysus. Depending on the telling, each god presided over an essential aspect of existence, reflecting the Greeks' understanding of the world around them. Together, they formed a council of divine power, a collective that echoed human society but on a grander eternal scale. The establishment of Olympus was more than architecture or residence. It was the codification of cosmic order. The Greeks imagined these gods dining on ambrosia and nectar, the food and drink of immortality, and gathering in halls to deliberate the fates of men and the affairs of heaven. Yet, unlike the distant Titans, the Olympians were involved in mortal lives. They meddled, loved, quarreled, and punished, ensuring their presence was felt everywhere. This new dwelling also signaled a departure from the chaotic past. The Titans had been aloof and primal, embodying the raw forces of the cosmos. The Olympians, in contrast, were anthropomorphic. They reflected human virtues, vices, and passions. They became relatable and worshipped, not as distant abstractions, but as divine beings with personalities, temperaments, and grudges. Thus, Olympus became the eternal court of the gods, where power was debated, alliances forged, and the destiny of humanity shaped. It was here that the gods' myths would unfold, their rivalries play out, and their legacies ripple through human history. The rise of Zeus as king of gods and men. Though the Olympians ruled together, Zeus quickly emerged as the leader. His victory in the Titanomachy had cemented his authority, but leadership among gods required more than brute strength. Zeus proved himself not only with his thunderbolts but with his cunning, his ability to negotiate, and his talent for balancing competing powers. Where Cronus had ruled through fear, Zeus sought to establish his reign through structure, hierarchy, and occasionally, charm. The Greeks described Zeus as the wielder of thunder and lightning, but also as the upholder of justice and order. He was the protector of Xenia, the sacred bond of hospitality, and the punisher of oath breakers. In a world where human societies depended on trust, alliances, and sacred obligations, Zeus embodied the principle of order itself. His role was cosmic as well as moral. Yet Zeus' reign was not without conflict. His numerous love affairs sparked the jealousy of Hera, his queen, and the resentment of gods and mortals alike. His authority was challenged by conspiracies. Even from within Olympus, at times, Poseidon, Hera, and Athena plotted against him, frustrated by his dominance. But Zeus always emerged supreme, quelling rebellion with thunderbolts or with clever persuasion. Zeus' rise also marked the expansion of divine influence into the mortal world. Kings and rulers claimed their authority through him, temples rose in his honor, and his oracles spoke divine will to mortals. At Dodona, and later Delphi, his words shaped politics and destiny. The idea of Zeus as father of gods and men was not merely myth but the underpinning of Greek civilization. By establishing himself as king, Zeus set the pattern for divine monarchy, a role that blended raw power with responsibility. He became not just a thunderwielder, but the embodiment of justice, destiny, and the unshakable order of the cosmos. The Titanomachy gods versus giants. Though the Olympians had defeated the Titans, their supremacy was soon challenged by another race, the giants. Born of Gaia, after she became enraged at the imprisonment of her Titan children, the Gigantes were not ordinary beings. Towering and powerful, often depicted with serpent tails for legs, they embodied raw earthly force. Their rebellion, known as the Titanomachy, was a second great cosmic war that tested the rule of Zeus and his siblings. The giants stormed Olympus with ferocity, shaking the earth with every step. Armed with immense boulders and burning trees, they hurled destruction at the heavens. Some myths claimed they even tried to stack mountains atop one another to scale the sky itself. The gods fought valiantly, but prophecy foretold that the giants could not be defeated by gods alone. A mortal was needed. Enter Heracles, the son of Zeus, who joined the battle and turned the tide. With his bow and arrows, he struck down key giants, enabling the gods to overcome them. Zeus' thunderbolts seared the battlefield, Athena crushed Enceladus beneath Mount Etna, and Poseidon hurled the island of Nisros upon the body of the giant polybotes. The landscape of Greece, in this way, was mythically tied to the fallen bodies of giants, their remains becoming the very mountains and islands of the Aegean. The Titanomachy was not merely a myth of war, but a reaffirmation of divine order. The gods' victory reinforced their authority, proving that no force, however raw or immense, could overthrow the balance they had established. It also highlighted the collaboration between divine and mortal, a theme central to Greek mythology, where humans often played pivotal roles in cosmic struggles. Thus, the Titanomachy became a tale not only of violence but of legitimacy, where Zeus' reign was defended against chaos, and the partnership between gods and heroes was forever enshrined in legend. Typhon the monster, and Zeus' greatest trial. If the giants tested Olympus, Typhon nearly destroyed it. Born of Gaia and Tartarus as the ultimate vengeance for the fate of the Titans, Typhon was a monster beyond imagination. He was said to be so tall that his head brushed the stars. His hands stretched east and west, and instead of legs he bore writhing serpents. From his many mouths spewed fire, venom, and every manner of horrific sound. The bellowing of bulls, the roar of lions, the hiss of serpents. When Typhon rose, even the gods trembled. Many fled to Egypt, disguising themselves as animals to escape his wrath. A myth that later explained why Egyptian gods were often depicted with animal heads. Only Zeus stood firm, meeting Typhon in single combat. Armed with his thunderbolts and the sickle once used by Cronus, Zeus unleashed his full fury. The battle shook heaven and earth alike, yet Typhon proved nearly unstoppable. He managed to wrestle Zeus, cutting the sinews from his hands and feet, rendering him powerless. The monster carried him away, imprisoning him in a cave. For a time, it seemed the reign of Olympus had ended before it truly began. But Hermes and Pan rescued Zeus, restoring his strength. Recovered, Zeus returned with unmatched fury. His thunderbolts blazed like 1,000 suns as he hurled them against Typhon. Finally, he cast the monster down, pinning him beneath Mount Etna in Sicily, where his fiery breath was said to cause eruptions. The Greeks believed every rumble of the volcano was Typhon's rage, straining against his prison. This trial was Zeus' greatest test, proving not just his strength, but his resilience. The defeat of Typhon cemented his kingship, ensuring that no force, titan, giant, or monster could rival him. It was the ultimate victory of order over chaos, fire over destruction, and the eternal supremacy of Olympus. The role of fate and the Moirai fates. Despite their power, even the Olympians were not free to rule as they pleased. Looming above them was the force of fate, embodied in the Moirai or fates. These three goddesses, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, spun, measured, and cut the thread of life, for every mortal and immortal alike. Not even Zeus could defy them, for they were older than the Olympians, woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. Clotho spun the thread, giving life. Lachesis measured it, determining one's destiny. Atropos cut it, bringing inevitable death. This triad symbolized the inescapability of destiny, a truth the Greeks held as central to existence. The fates did not merely govern life and death, they governed the course of history, ensuring that every rise and fall, every war and peace, unfolded as destined. Even Zeus was bound by their will. Myths tell of him consulting the fates before making crucial decisions, acknowledging their supremacy. Heroes too encountered them, often in moments of great crisis. Achilles' choice between a long, obscure life and a short, glorious one reflected the inevitability of fate's decree. Oedipus' tragic story was another example, where prophecy guided his every step despite desperate attempts to avoid it. The presence of the Moirai gave Greek mythology its profound sense of inevitability. No matter how powerful, how clever, or how beloved, no figure could escape what was woven into their thread. This belief mirrored human experience. Despite our struggles, we are all bound by mortality and the unpredictability of fortune. In acknowledging the power of the Moirai, Greek myth reminds us that even gods bow to forces greater than themselves. Fate is the silent architect of existence, indifferent, unyielding, and eternal. The primordial deities, Nyx, Erebus, beyond the Olympians and their struggles lay the older, more enigmatic beings of creation. Among them was Nyx, the goddess of night, a shadowy and powerful figure feared even by Zeus. From her came Erebus, the god of darkness, and Thanatos, the personification of death. These primordial deities represented the inescapable boundaries of existence: nightfall, shadow, and the end of life. Nyx was described as a force so ancient and immense that even the king of gods dared not oppose her. She resided at the edge of the cosmos, emerging each evening to drape the world in her dark veil. Her children included not only sleep, Hypnos, and death, Thanatos, but also doom, strife, and the Hesperides who guarded golden apples. Nyx embodied mystery, the unknowable vastness that mortals and gods alike could not control. Erebus, her consort, was the embodiment of darkness itself, not mere absence of light, but a cosmic principle. Together, Nyx and Erebus symbolized the primordial duality of night and day, light and shadow, order and uncertainty. For the Greeks, these figures explained the natural cycles of the cosmos, while reminding them of the ever-present shadows in life. Thanatos, meanwhile, personified death not as a villain but as an inevitable presence, often depicted as a winged spirit. He gently carried souls to the underworld. He was feared, but unlike Hades or other Titanomachy figures, Thanatos was not cruel. He was impartial, carrying out the decree of fate. In myths, even heroes struggled against him, but few could escape his grasp. The primordial deities remind us that beneath the stories of Olympians lies a deeper layer of myth, one that speaks to universal truths. Night falls, darkness prevails, and death comes for all. These figures embody the eternal mysteries, forces that even gods must respect. The rivers of the underworld and cosmic geography. In Greek mythology, the underworld wasn't just a shadowy abyss of the dead, it was a meticulously structured realm, woven together by 5 great rivers that shaped the fates of souls. These rivers weren't physical streams as we know them, but cosmic boundaries, each carrying symbolic weight that defined the journey after death. The most famous of them was the river Styx, the river of oaths, across which Charon ferried souls. Even the gods themselves swore by Styx, for to break an oath sworn upon it meant exile from Olympus. To the Greeks, Styx embodied the unbreakable weight of promises, binding both mortals and immortals alike. Another current was Acheron, the river of sorrow. Souls wept as they crossed its waters, for Acheron symbolized the grief of death itself, the pain of leaving behind the world of the living. Then came Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. Those who drank from its waters would lose their memories entirely, a chilling reminder that eternity often required the stripping away of earthly attachments. In stark contrast flowed Phlegethon, a fiery torrent of flame that wound through Tartarus, burning eternally but never consuming. This river symbolized purification through destruction, linking death to cycles of rebirth. Finally, there was Cocytus, the river of wailing, where anguished souls echoed their despair for eternity. Together, these rivers didn't simply define the geography of Hades, they reflected the Greek vision of the human condition. Memory, sorrow, punishment, and promises were all inseparable from existence. The underworld was not merely a prison, but a mirror held up to the truths of mortal life. Hera, queen of Olympus and patron of marriage. Hera, wife of Zeus and queen of Olympus, was revered as the goddess of marriage and the protector of women. Yet beneath the regal title lay one of the most complex figures in mythology. She was both majestic and deeply vengeful, embodying the duality of devotion and wrath. Hera's marriage to Zeus was a paradox. She upheld the sanctity of marriage for humanity while trapped in a union scarred by her husband's endless infidelities. Her anger toward Zeus often turned outward, unleashed upon his lovers and their children, creating some of the most tragic stories in myth. Despite her fury, Hera was far from a one-dimensional figure. She represented the dignity and endurance of women, the struggles they faced within patriarchal structures, and the ferocity with which they defended their honor. For mortals, she could be both a fierce ally and a dangerous enemy. Temples dedicated to her were among the oldest in Greece, with the Heraion of Samos and Argos standing as testaments to her enduring worship. Hera also had a political dimension. She symbolized stability, legitimacy, and the continuation of dynasties. Marriages were not merely private affairs in ancient Greece, but bonds that strengthened city-states, families, and kingdoms. As such, Hera's domain extended far beyond personal love, anchoring the very order of society. Poseidon, lord of the sea and earthquakes. If Zeus ruled the skies, then Poseidon's realm was the unpredictable, violent, yet life-giving sea. His power stretched over oceans, storms, and even earthquakes, earning him the title Earthshaker. Mariners prayed to him for safe passage, while cities sought his favor during droughts. Yet his nature was as volatile as the waves. He commanded calm, one moment, destructive the next. This duality made him one of the most feared and respected Olympians. Poseidon was also a god of rivalry. His contests with other deities often shaped Greek mythology. Perhaps the most famous was his competition with Athena over the patronage of Athens. While Poseidon struck the earth with his trident, creating a saltwater spring, Athena offered the olive tree, symbol of peace and prosperity. The Athenians chose her gift, cementing Athena's influence, but also earning Poseidon's eternal resentment. Despite his tempestuous nature, Poseidon played a key role in shaping civilizations. The Greeks depended on the sea for trade, colonization, and warfare, and in Poseidon they found a reflection of its dangers and possibilities. He was worshipped as a god of horses as well, his trident symbolically tied to the untamed power of animals that carried humans into battle and across new lands. His myths remind us that nature's power is both destructive and essential, and to honor it was to acknowledge humanity's fragile place in the cosmos. Hades, ruler of the dead and the underworld. Hades, the silent brother of Zeus and Poseidon, ruled over the realm of the dead. Unlike his siblings, who enjoyed domains of sky and sea, Hades was given a kingdom, shrouded in shadows. Yet he was not a villain in the Greek imagination, merely the stern and impartial keeper of souls. While mortals feared him, they also respected his role in maintaining balance. Without Hades, the world of the living could not exist, for death was the inevitable counterpart to life. Hades' most famous myth revolves around his abduction of Persephone, daughter of Demeter. Though a tale of violence and sorrow, it also explained the natural cycle of the seasons. Persephone's descent into the underworld marking winter, her return to her mother heralding spring. Through this myth, Hades became more than just a distant god of death. He was an integral part of nature's rhythm. Temples to Hades were rare, for his cult was shrouded in fear, but his presence was undeniable. He possessed the Helm of Darkness, a magical object that rendered him invisible, symbolizing the unseen power of death itself. Hades reminds us that while mortals may dread the inevitable, the Greeks recognized death not as an evil, but as a necessary truth woven into the fabric of existence. Athena, goddess of wisdom and war strategy. Athena was unlike any other Olympian, virgin goddess born fully armored from the head of Zeus after he swallowed her mother, Metis. From her very origin, she symbolized intellect, clarity, and the power of the mind to shape destiny. Unlike Ares, who represented the chaos of war, Athena embodied strategy, discipline, and just conflict. Her worshippers saw in her not only a warrior, but also a guide for wisdom in governance, craft, and philosophy. The city of Athens, named in her honor, became the cultural beacon of Greece, reflecting her ideals of balance between war and intellect. The Parthenon, her great temple on the Acropolis, was not merely a religious site but a symbol of human achievement and devotion to wisdom. Athena's gift of the olive tree to the Athenians reflected her character life-giving, enduring, and deeply practical. Athena's myths often highlight her protective role toward heroes. She guided Perseus in slaying Medusa, aided Odysseus in his long journey home, and stood as a steadfast ally to many who embodied cleverness and courage. Yet she could also be ruthless, punishing hubris and arrogance, as seen in the tale of Arachne, the mortal weaver who challenged the goddess and was transformed into a spider. Athena was the perfect balance of intellect and might, showing that true strength lay in the harmony of wisdom and power. Ares, god of war and bloodlust. In stark contrast to Athena stood Ares, the embodiment of war in its rawest, most brutal form. Where Athena valued discipline and justice, Ares thrived in chaos, bloodshed, and violence. The Greeks often viewed him with suspicion, for his presence brought devastation rather than glory. Even the Olympians regarded him warily, as his lust for conflict could not easily be tempered. Despite this, Ares was not without his place in mythology. He symbolized the untamed rage within humanity, the primal force that drove men into battle. His love affair with Aphrodite highlighted his dual nature: violence, intertwined with desire, destruction entwined with passion. This union represented the uncontrollable aspects of human existence, where love and war became inseparable. Though often despised by mortals, Ares was still worshipped by warriors, who sought his strength in times of battle. His Roman counterpart, Mars, would later be elevated to a far more noble role, but in Greece, Ares remained a cautionary figure. He was a reminder of the dangers of unchecked fury, showing that war, while sometimes necessary, could also spiral into madness and ruin if left untamed. Apollo, god of light, prophecy, and music. Apollo was one of the most revered gods of Olympus, embodying light, reason, and artistry. Unlike the stormy temper of Zeus or the volatility of Poseidon, Apollo represented harmony and balance, the golden mean of the universe. He was both healer and bringer of plague, showing that even light had its shadows. His duality reflected the Greek understanding of nature, beauty, and destruction intertwined. The god was also the master of prophecy, with his oracle at Delphi standing as the spiritual heart of Greece. Pilgrims traveled from across the Mediterranean to consult the Pythia, who spoke Apollo's riddling truths. These oracles guided kings, influenced wars, and shaped the destinies of entire city-states. Apollo's voice was both cryptic and unavoidable, a reminder that divine wisdom was never fully within human grasp. As god of music, Apollo played the lyre, symbolizing harmony between the cosmos and the human soul. Music, for the Greeks, was not entertainment alone, it was mathematics, medicine, and moral order. Through Apollo, music became a divine bridge, linking mortals to the eternal. He presided over the muses, inspiring poetry, art, and knowledge, making him central to the flourishing of culture. Apollo's myths often placed him in conflict or rivalry. His slaying of the Python at Delphi established his dominion over prophecy, while his contests with satyrs or with Marsyas, the flutist, reflected the tension between refined art and raw chaotic passion. His love stories, tragic and unfulfilled, also defined him, with figures like Daphne, who transformed into a laurel tree to escape him, becoming immortalized as his sacred symbols. Ultimately, Apollo was more than a god of light, he was a god of order itself, the guiding force of clarity in a world filled with chaos. Yet his perfection also carried loneliness, a reminder that even divine beauty could wound as much as it inspired. Artemis, huntress and protector of the wild, twin sister of Apollo, Artemis ruled the wilderness with a bow in hand and a fierce independence. Known as the Virgin Huntress, she was one of the few Olympians who never submitted to love or marriage, a choice that made her both powerful and untouchable. Her dominion stretched across forests, animals, and the moon itself, making her a goddess of both freedom and mystery. Artemis was a protector of women, particularly during childbirth, yet she was also known for her unforgiving wrath. Myths portray her as fiercely guarding her purity and independence. When Actaeon stumbled upon her bathing, she transformed him into a stag, and he was torn apart by his own hounds. This tale, among others, showed that Artemis tolerated no violation of boundaries, whether divine or mortal. Her dual role as nurturer and punisher fascinated the Greeks. She could bless hunters with abundant prey, but just as easily strike down those who killed without reverence. For the Greeks, Artemis embodied nature's unpredictability, capable of sustaining life, but equally ready to unleash destruction if dishonored. Her virginity was not weakness but strength, symbolizing her absolute autonomy in a pantheon dominated by patriarchal structures. Her cults, particularly at Broron and Ephesus, emphasized rites of passage for young girls, linking her to the transition from childhood to adulthood. In this way, Artemis bridged wildness and civilization, teaching balance between freedom and responsibility. Artemis, like the moon she governed, shone in cycles, distant, mysterious, and unyielding, yet always present. She reminded the Greeks that power was not only in dominance, but in restraint, independence, and the untamed spirit. Aphrodite, goddess of love and desire. Few gods were as universally captivating as Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, love, and desire. Born from the sea foam when Uranus' severed genitals fell into the ocean, her origins were as violent as they were divine. Rising from the waves, Aphrodite embodied irresistible attraction, the primal force that bound gods and mortals alike. Her power was subtle, yet overwhelming. She could bend the will of gods, topple empires, and spark wars, all with the force of love and passion. Yet Aphrodite was not merely about romance. She represented the raw, often dangerous power of desire itself, which could unite or destroy with equal intensity. The Trojan War itself, according to myth, began when Paris awarded her the golden apple, seduced by her promise of the most beautiful woman in the world. Her marriage to Hephaestus was loveless, marked by her numerous affairs, most famously with Ares. This union of beauty and war reflected the intermingling of passion and violence, a reminder that love could ignite not only joy but also devastation. Cult worship of Aphrodite was widespread, with temples and rituals dedicated to her across Greece and Cyprus. Some of her rites blurred the lines between sacred devotion and sensual practice, reflecting her role in both divine love and human sexuality. She was as much a goddess of political power, alliances, and dynasties as she was of personal affection. Aphrodite was both enchanting and perilous. She revealed that love was never innocent. It carried weight, consequences, and transformations. In her beauty lay both creation and destruction, a duality the Greeks understood deeply. Hephaestus, divine smith and firebringer. Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsmanship, was unlike the other Olympians. Cast down from Olympus at birth for his deformity, he became the embodiment of resilience and skill. Crippled in body, but unmatched in ingenuity, Hephaestus built the weapons of the gods, forged the armor of heroes, and crafted wonders that blurred the line between art and power. Though often marginalized among the Olympians, his creations made him indispensable. The thunderbolts of Zeus, the trident of Poseidon, and the shield of Achilles all came from his forge. His mastery over fire transformed it from destructive chaos into controlled power. Symbolizing humanity's own taming of nature through craft, his marriage to Aphrodite was a cruel irony, pairing beauty with deformity, passion with rejection. Yet this too reflected Greek truths. Beauty and skill rarely coexist in harmony, and human life is often a mixture of triumph and suffering. In some myths, Hephaestus captured Aphrodite and Ares in a golden net, exposing their betrayal to the other gods. Though mocked, he retained dignity as the one who shaped even Olympus's destiny through his craft. Hephaestus was worshipped especially by artisans and blacksmiths, who saw in him the divine reflection of their labor. His myths celebrated creativity not as effortless beauty, but as the product of struggle, perseverance, and mastery. He was the god who proved that greatness was not defined by perfection, but by the transformation of imperfection into power. Through fire and iron, Hephaestus embodied the resilience of the human spirit. Hermes, messenger, trickster, and guide of souls. Hermes was the most versatile of the Olympians, a god of boundaries, transitions, and cunning. As the messenger of the gods, he moved freely between Olympus, Earth, and the underworld, making him a vital link in the cosmic order. Swift-footed and clever, Hermes embodied adaptability, intelligence, and mischief. From infancy, he revealed his trickster nature. On the day of his birth, Hermes stole Apollo's cattle, cleverly disguising their tracks by making them walk backward. Instead of punishment, this act earned him Apollo's admiration, and Hermes was gifted the lyre, symbolizing his role as both deceiver and diplomat. His cunning was never purely malicious. It often brought balance, resolving disputes or easing tensions between gods. Hermes was also a god of travelers, merchants, and thieves. He presided over trade and exchange, reflecting the importance of negotiation and cleverness in Greek society. To those on dangerous journeys, he offered guidance and protection, embodying the liminal space between safety and risk. Perhaps most significant was his role as Psychopomp, the guide of souls to the underworld. In this role, Hermes was not fearful, but compassionate, leading the dead across the threshold of life and death. He was the bridge between worlds, a reminder that every boundary could be crossed with cleverness and grace. Hermes was worshipped widely, often at crossroads and marketplaces, where his statues called Herm stood as guardians of passage. His myths highlighted the value of wit over brute strength, showing that intelligence and adaptability often mattered more than sheer force. Dionysus, god of wine, madness, and ecstasy. Dionysus, the youngest Olympian, embodied chaos, ecstasy, and transformation. Born from the union of Zeus and the mortal Semele, his very existence blurred the line between mortal and divine. His worship was unlike that of any other god, filled with frenzied dances, ecstatic rituals, and intoxicating release. Where Apollo represented order, Dionysus embodied liberation. His myths centered on themes of death and rebirth. Torn apart by titans in one version of his story, and later restored, Dionysus symbolized the cycles of nature, mirroring the growth and harvest of the vine. His gift of wine was not merely indulgence, but a spiritual act, an escape from ordinary existence and a connection to something primal and divine. Dionysus was also a god of outsiders. Women, slaves, and foreigners often found refuge in his cult, which defied social hierarchies. The Bacchic rites released suppressed emotions, offering freedom in a society bound by rigid structures. Yet his liberation could be dangerous. Madness, frenzy, and destruction often followed those who resisted or disrespected him. The tragedy of King Pentheus in Euripides' Bacchae illustrates this power vividly, as the king was torn apart by his own mother under Dionysian madness. Despite his chaotic nature, Dionysus was deeply beloved. He represented joy, creativity, and the acceptance of life's irrational side. Festivals in his honor became the foundation of Greek theater, linking art directly to divine ecstasy. Dionysus reminded the Greeks that order alone could not sustain life. Without passion, chaos, and release, existence became sterile. In him, they found the wild heart of the human condition. Prometheus, the firebringer, and punishment. Prometheus, whose name means forethought, was a titan with a deep sympathy for humanity. While the Olympians often viewed mortals as pawns, Prometheus admired their potential. He is best known for stealing fire from the gods, a gift of knowledge, warmth, and civilization itself. Fire was transformative. It allowed humans to cook food, forge metal, and establish cities, symbolizing the dawn of culture. Yet this act of generosity came at a great cost. Zeus, furious at Prometheus for empowering mortals, sentenced him to eternal torment. Bound to a rock, an eagle would feast on his liver each day, only for it to regenerate overnight. The punishment was both physical and symbolic, illustrating the peril of defying divine authority. Prometheus' suffering became a testament to courage, foresight, and the price of rebellion. His myth also reflects the Greek understanding of human progress. Fire was not merely a tool, it was knowledge, technology, and empowerment. Prometheus represented the tension between divine power and human ambition, showing that enlightenment often comes with sacrifice. Prometheus' cunning extended beyond the theft of fire. He tricked Zeus into accepting the lesser portion of a sacrificial bull, giving humans the choice of offerings that would favor them. This act cemented his role as both benefactor and strategist, revealing that intelligence often surpasses brute force. Through Prometheus, the Greeks explored the dual nature of gifts. They can liberate or endanger. Fire, knowledge, and foresight. Prometheus' domains symbolize humanity's eternal struggle to master its destiny amidst divine oversight. Pandora's jar, the birth of human suffering. Pandora, the first mortal woman created by Hephaestus, was crafted as both beautiful and cunning. A divine paradox designed by Zeus. Each god contributed to her form, bestowing gifts that included charm, curiosity, and skill in deceit. Her very existence was meant as a punishment for humanity, a counterpart to Prometheus' gift of fire. Zeus presented her with a jar, often mistranslated as a box, containing all human evils, commanding her never to open it. Yet curiosity, one of her defining traits, overcame caution, and Pandora lifted the lid. Out poured disease, pain, sorrow, and death, spreading across the earth. Only hope remained, trapped at the bottom, a small consolation amid overwhelming misfortune. The myth of Pandora explains the human condition. Suffering is intrinsic, yet hope endures. It reflects the Greeks' philosophical exploration of morality, curiosity, and consequence. Pandora's actions were not malicious but inevitable, highlighting the precarious balance between divine design and mortal agency. Pandora's jar also symbolized the irresistible allure of knowledge and temptation. Just as fire transformed human society, her curiosity unleashed change both destructive and enlightening. The myth underscores that every gift, divine or mortal, carries risk. In Greek culture, Pandora's story was a moral parable, reminding mortals of their limits while acknowledging the power of human resilience. Despite the calamities she unleashed, hope's persistence offered a path forward, a spark of optimism in a world of trials. Perseus and the head of Medusa. Perseus, son of Zeus and Dano, was a hero forged by destiny. His most famous feat, the slaying of Medusa, the Gorgon whose gaze turned men to stone, required courage, ingenuity, and divine aid. Athena provided him a polished shield to view Medusa's reflection, Hermes lent winged sandals for swift movement, and Hades' helm of invisibility allowed him to approach unseen. Perseus' journey was fraught with peril. Medusa's lair, surrounded by petrified victims, symbolized death and the lurking threat of failure. By beheading her, Perseus not only conquered the monstrous, but also reclaimed power through intellect and strategy, demonstrating that heroism often depended on cleverness rather than brute strength. The hero's return journey was equally dramatic. He rescued Andromeda, chained to a rock as a sacrifice to a sea monster, further cementing his reputation as a protector and champion. Perseus' story intertwines divine intervention, personal bravery, and moral duty, creating a narrative that resonated across generations. Perseus' use of Medusa's head, which retained its petrifying power, symbolizes the lasting influence of a single courageous act. It served as both a weapon and a warning, illustrating that heroism carries responsibility and consequence. In Greek mythology, Perseus epitomizes the hero who bridges mortal and divine realms. His story celebrates cleverness, courage, and the use of gifts wisely, a model of heroism that balances destiny with personal initiative. Heracles and the 12 labors. Heracles, son of Zeus and the mortal Alcmene, was the embodiment of strength, endurance, and human struggle. Cursed by Hera, he endured trials that would break lesser men, culminating in the famous 12 labors. Each labor, ranging from slaying the Nemean lion to capturing the Erymanthian boar, tested his physical prowess, wit, and morality. The labors were more than feats of strength. They were lessons in humility, patience, and strategy. Heracles often relied on ingenuity, using the lion's own claws to skin it, diverting rivers to clean the Augean stables, and enlisting divine help when necessary. His successes illustrate the Greek ideal that raw power must be guided by intelligence and perseverance. Heracles' story reflects the tension between human suffering and divine favor. Though a hero, he was constantly reminded that strength alone does not guarantee safety or happiness. His labors often served as penance, blending moral lesson with epic adventure. Beyond his physical achievements, Heracles' life included tragedy, love, and betrayal. The death of his children, and the madness inflicted by Hera, painted him as a deeply human hero, capable of both triumph and despair. This complexity made him relatable, a mortal hero shaped by divine whims, yet defined by personal courage. Heracles' enduring legacy lies in the balance he struck. Raw power tempered by intellect, suffering transformed into glory, and mortality intersecting with divinity in heroic harmony. Theseus and the Minotaur of Crete. Theseus, Prince of Athens. became famous for navigating the labyrinth of Crete and slaying the Minotaur, a monstrous offspring of Poseidon, and a divine bull. His journey to Crete was both a literal and symbolic passage, representing the confrontation with chaos, fear, and human monstrosity. Guided by Ariadne's thread, Theseus displayed cunning alongside courage. Navigating the labyrinth with foresight and patience, the Minotaur, a creature of both human and animal, symbolized the blend of civilization and savagery, reflecting the duality of human nature. By defeating it, Theseus demonstrated mastery over chaos and the triumph of intelligence over brute force. Theseus' return journey, though less celebrated, contained moral and political lessons. Forgetting to change the black sails to white, he inadvertently caused his father Aegeus' death, highlighting the consequences of oversight and human error. Greek mythology often used such narratives to emphasize that heroism carries responsibility beyond immediate feats. The story of Theseus also establishes the archetype of the founder hero. Upon returning to Athens, he unified scattered communities, laying the groundwork for civic organization and collective identity. His deeds combined mythic adventure with social foundation, blending heroism with the shaping of civilization. Theseus represents the hero who balances bravery, intellect, and moral responsibility, showing that triumph is not only measured in conquest, but also in wisdom and foresight. Jason and the Argonauts' quest for the Golden Fleece. Jason, a prince of Iolcus, embarked on one of the most celebrated quests of Greek mythology, the search for the Golden Fleece. Assembling the Argonauts, a band of legendary heroes, including Heracles and Orpheus, Jason's expedition combined exploration, diplomacy, and cunning. The Golden Fleece itself symbolized authority, legitimacy, and divine favor, making the journey both perilous and politically charged. The challenges Jason faced were immense, navigating deadly seas, confronting harpies and clashing rocks, and overcoming King Aeetes' trials and Chalkes. Medea, the sorceress and daughter of Aeetes, became both helper and love interest, providing magical assistance while highlighting the intertwining of personal loyalty and danger. Jason's story underscores the Greek admiration for collaboration. Though a hero, he relied on the talents, courage, and skills of the Argonauts, reflecting the ideal that greatness often requires collective effort. Yet personal flaws, pride, hesitation, and later betrayal also shaped his legend, demonstrating that heroism is intertwined with human imperfection. The voyage of the Argonauts was more than a quest. It was a metaphor for life's journey, demanding courage, strategy, and adaptability. Jason's pursuit of the Golden Fleece symbolized ambition tempered by divine will and human ingenuity, illustrating the complex moral landscape of Greek myth. Jason's legacy persisted not merely in deeds, but in the lessons of leadership, loyalty, and the precarious balance of personal desire and heroic duty. Atalanta, huntress of Greece and the Chaldean boar. Atalanta, famed for her speed and skill, was raised by bears in the wilderness after being abandoned at birth. Her upbringing in the untamed wilds shaped her into a formidable huntress and independent warrior. Unlike many female figures in Greek mythology, Atalanta was renowned for her self-reliance and courage, often outmatching men in feats of strength and agility. Her most famous myth is the hunt for the Chaldean boar, a monstrous beast sent by Artemis to ravage the region of Calydon. Atalanta, the only female hunter among a group of elite heroes, demonstrated both bravery and skill by delivering the first blow to the boar. Her triumph not only earned her renown, but also highlighted the Greeks' recognition of exceptional female heroism in a male-dominated narrative. Beyond her hunting prowess, Atalanta became known for her role in the foot race that determined her suitor. She declared she would only marry a man who could outrun her, a challenge no man could meet without deceit or divine intervention. The tale reflects themes of independence, intellect, and the challenge of balancing love with personal agency. Atalanta's myths also explore the tension between human ambition and divine will. Her victories were extraordinary, yet she was never entirely free from the consequences of fate, showing that heroism often comes with limitations imposed by higher powers. Her story inspired admiration for courage, independence, and skill, making Atalanta one of the most memorable heroines in Greek mythology. Her legacy is a testament to the power of resilience and determination in shaping one's destiny. Bellerophon and the winged horse, Pegasus. Bellerophon, a hero of Corinth, is most famous for taming Pegasus, the winged horse, and slaying the monstrous chimera. His story begins with exile accusations and the quest for redemption, emphasizing the Greek ideal that heroism is inseparable from personal struggle and reputation. Pegasus, a divine creature born from Medusa's blood, symbolized freedom, inspiration, and the bridging of mortal and divine realms. With Pegasus, Bellerophon gained the mobility and strength necessary to confront creatures that defied ordinary human abilities. Their partnership illustrates the synergy between human courage and divine favor. The Chimera, a hybrid monster with lion, goat, and serpent elements, represented chaos and the destructive potential of nature. Bellerophon's strategy involved flying above the beast and attacking from the air, demonstrating the Greek appreciation for intellect and ingenuity alongside valor. Bellerophon's tale also contains cautionary elements. Later, he attempted to ascend to Olympus on Pegasus, seeking to rival the gods themselves. Zeus punished his hubris, sending him tumbling back to earth. The story reflects the recurring Greek theme that ambition must be tempered by humility. Ultimately, Bellerophon embodies the hero who balances skill, courage, and divine assistance, yet remains subject to the limits imposed by fate and the gods. His narrative serves as both inspiration and warning, blending triumph with the enduring lesson of humility. Orpheus and Eurydice, love and loss in the underworld. Orpheus, legendary musician and poet, possessed the power to charm all living creatures and even inanimate objects with his music. His love for Eurydice, a mortal woman, became a defining element of his myth, emphasizing the transcendent nature of art and emotion in Greek storytelling. When Eurydice died from a snakebite, Orpheus descended into the underworld, armed only with his lyre and his voice. His music softened the hearts of Hades and Persephone, who granted him permission to lead Eurydice back to the living world on one condition: he must not look at her until they reached the surface. Tragically, Orpheus faltered at the last moment, glancing back and losing Eurydice forever. This moment of human frailty encapsulates themes of trust, patience, and the tragic inevitability of fate. The story illustrates that even extraordinary talent cannot always overcome the immutable laws of the cosmos. Orpheus' journey highlights the tension between human desire and divine decree, showing that love, art, and bravery often intersect with sorrow and loss. His grief became legendary, influencing later poetry, music, and myth. Despite his failure, Orpheus' legend endures as a testament to the enduring power of love, the arts, and the human spirit, demonstrating that beauty and passion can persist even in tragedy. Oedipus and the Curse of Thebes. Oedipus, son of Laius and Jocasta, was fated from birth to kill his father and marry his mother. Abandoned to avoid this prophecy, he was nonetheless drawn into it through a combination of fate and circumstance. His story is a profound exploration of destiny, free will, and the tragic consequences of human action. Upon reaching adulthood, Oedipus unknowingly killed his father at a crossroads, fulfilling part of the prophecy. He later solved the riddle of the Sphinx, liberating Thebes from its terror, and was rewarded with kingship and marriage to Jocasta, unaware of their true relationship. The revelation of the truth led to catastrophe. Jocasta took her own life, and Oedipus blinded himself, demonstrating the interplay of knowledge, suffering, and morality. The story emphasizes that even heroic qualities cannot escape fate, and that awareness of the truth can bring both enlightenment and devastation. Oedipus' myth reflects the Greeks' fascination with the limits of human understanding and the inevitability of destiny. It portrays the tragic consequences of attempting to outwit the gods, and the complex nature of guilt, innocence, and responsibility. His tale remains a cornerstone of tragedy, influencing literature, drama, and philosophical thought for millennia, symbolizing the precarious balance between human choice and cosmic order. Paris' judgment and the apple of discord. Paris, Prince of Troy, became central to one of the most fateful decisions in Greek mythology. Tasked with judging which goddess Hera, Athena, or Aphrodite, was the fairest, he inadvertently set the stage for the Trojan War. Each goddess offered him a bribe, power, wisdom, or the love of the most beautiful mortal woman. Paris' choice of Aphrodite, swayed by her promise of Helen, demonstrates the interplay between desire, decision-making, and destiny. This seemingly personal judgment had immense political and martial consequences, illustrating how individual actions can ripple through history. The myth highlights Greek concerns with beauty, temptation, and the moral weight of choices. Paris' decision, motivated by attraction, underscores the tension between personal inclination and collective fate. Moreover, the story introduces the concept of divine interference in human affairs. The goddesses' competing interests reveal that mortals often act under the influence of higher powers, and that fate can be manipulated but rarely avoided. Paris' judgment reminds audiences that seemingly small acts can have monumental consequences, reinforcing the Greek belief in interconnectedness, responsibility, and the enduring impact of human choice. Helen of Troy, the face that launched 1,000 ships. Helen, daughter of Zeus and Lyta, was renowned for her unparalleled beauty. Her abduction or elopement with Paris became the catalyst for the Trojan War, demonstrating the profound influence of desire, envy, and divine manipulation in human affairs. Helen's story is complex, blending elements of agency and victimhood. While some accounts portray her as a passive participant, others suggest complicity, highlighting the ambiguous moral terrain of myth and the interplay of fate and choice. Her beauty, both divine and destructive, symbolizes the Greek view of aesthetics as a force with the power to shape history. It ignited one of the greatest wars in myth, illustrating how personal allure could have political and military ramifications. Helen's presence in Troy also underscores the vulnerability of kingdoms to human desire. The Greeks' expedition to retrieve her reflects themes of honor, loyalty, and vengeance, showing that mortals are often caught in the crossfire of divine and human passions. Ultimately, Helen's myth endures as a cautionary tale about the intersection of beauty, power, and destiny. She embodies both the allure and peril of desire, reminding us that human history in myth is as much shaped by personal charm as by courage and strategy. The Trojan War. Greeks versus Trojans. The Trojan War, lasting 10 years, was a conflict between the Greek city-states and the city of Troy. Sparked by the abduction of Helen, the war drew heroes from across the Aegean world. The Greeks, led by Agamemnon, assembled one of the greatest coalitions of legendary warriors, each with their unique strengths and personal ambitions. The war was as much about honor, reputation, and divine interference as it was about conquest. Gods and goddesses chose sides, influencing battles and morale. Athena, Hera, and Poseidon supported the Greeks, while Aphrodite and Apollo favored the Trojans, making the war a chessboard of divine strategy and mortal courage. Battles were fierce and continuous, with iconic duels shaping the narrative. Heroes like Diomedes, Ajax, and Hector clashed in moments of extraordinary valor. Individual combat often determined the course of entire campaigns, highlighting the Greeks' belief in personal honor as central to heroism. Sieges, skirmishes, and diplomatic maneuvers filled the 10 years, demonstrating the prolonged strain of war on soldiers and civilians alike. The Greeks' resourcefulness, from archery to naval strategy, was matched by Trojan resilience and leadership under King Priam. The Trojan War illustrates the interweaving of human ambition, divine meddling, and the consequences of personal choices. Its legends became foundational narratives of Greek identity, emphasizing courage, strategy, and the ever-present shadow of fate. Achilles. Rage, glory, and death. Achilles, the greatest Greek warrior, was nearly invincible, his only vulnerability being his heel. His wrath and heroism defined much of the Greek effort at Troy. The Iliad chronicles his anger at Agamemnon, his withdrawal from battle, and the devastating consequences for his fellow Greeks. Achilles' rage illustrates the Greek understanding of honor, pride, and emotional intensity. While he could decimate enemies effortlessly, his personal grievances could jeopardize entire campaigns. The interplay of emotion and duty is central to his narrative. His confrontation with Hector was a pinnacle of heroism and tragedy. Achilles' speed, strength, and martial skill overwhelmed Troy's champion. Yet the act was steeped in vengeance, reflecting the fine line between justice and cruelty in Greek moral thought. The death of Patroclus, his close companion, reignited Achilles' fury, culminating in the brutal slaying of Hector. Achilles' eventual fate foreseen by prophecy reminds us that even the mightiest hero cannot escape mortality. Achilles embodies both the glory and the peril of human excellence. His story balances martial prowess with psychological depth, showing that heroism comes with profound vulnerability and inevitable consequences. Hector, Prince of Troy and noble warrior. Hector, son of King Priam, was Troy's greatest defender. Unlike Achilles, Hector's heroism was defined by duty, familial loyalty, and honor rather than personal pride. He stood as a symbol of mortal courage in the face of divine and martial odds. Hector's duels with Greek heroes showcased not only his skill but also the nobility of Trojan resistance. He was a protector, a father, and a prince, constantly balancing civic responsibility with personal bravery. The tension between Hector and Achilles represents contrasting ideals of heroism, personal glory versus social duty. Hector's eventual death underscores the inevitability of fate and the tragic cost of war, while simultaneously cementing his legacy as a paragon of virtue. Hector's story humanizes a Trojan perspective, providing depth to the enemy side of the war. His actions highlight the Greeks' respect for worthy adversaries, illustrating that heroism transcends political allegiance. Through Hector, Greek mythology explores honor, duty, and the nobility inherent in facing impossible odds, leaving a lasting impression of virtue amid tragedy. The fall of Troy, the wooden horse trick. The war reached its climax with cunning rather than brute force. The Greeks, unable to breach Troy's walls, devised the legendary wooden horse stratagem. Concealing elite soldiers inside a massive horse, they presented it as an offering to the gods, playing on Trojan piety and curiosity. The Trojans, believing the horse a symbol of victory and divine favor, brought it within the city. That night, the Greek warriors emerged, opening the gates for their comrades. Troy, once impregnable, fell through deception, showing that strategy and intelligence could rival martial strength. This episode emphasizes the duality of Greek heroism, valor in combat and ingenuity in strategy. While the Greeks demonstrated bravery on the battlefield, their cunning ensured ultimate success, reflecting the Greeks' appreciation for both mind and muscle. The fall of Troy also marked the tragic end for its defenders. Families were slaughtered, kings killed, and cities razed. Yet from the ashes, tales of heroism, loyalty, and sacrifice endured, immortalized in song, story, and myth. The wooden horse legend reminds us that triumph can come in unexpected forms, and that even divine favor cannot prevent human error or misjudgment. Aeneas, survivor and founder of future Rome. Aeneas, Trojan prince and son of Venus, survived Troy's destruction. Unlike other heroes who perished, Aeneas's story extends beyond Troy, emphasizing endurance, piety, and destiny. He became a vessel for continuity, bridging the mythic past with the Roman future. Aeneas' escape and wanderings demonstrate resilience and leadership. Caring for survivors, he navigated political and natural challenges, guided by divine intervention. His journey exemplifies the Greek and later Roman values of perseverance, duty, and adherence to divine mandate. His tale foreshadows the foundation of Rome, blending Trojan tragedy with heroic vision. The interweaving of fate, divine guidance, and human agency in Aeneas' narrative contrasts with the more personal heroics of Achilles or Hector, showing another dimension of mythic leadership. Through Aeneas, Greek mythology expands beyond localized heroism to themes of legacy, culture, and historical destiny, demonstrating how myths can serve both narrative and foundational societal purposes. Odysseus and the journey home. Odysseus, king of Ithaca, became legendary for his cunning, resourcefulness, and endurance. Unlike other war heroes who achieved glory through strength alone, Odysseus' journey highlights intellect, adaptability, and psychological resilience. His encounters Cyclops, Sirens, Scylla, and Charybdis tested both bravery and wit. Each challenge combined physical danger with moral and strategic dilemmas. Reflecting the Greeks' belief in multifaceted heroism, Odysseus' return home was prolonged by divine interference and personal choices, emphasizing the interplay between fate, the gods, and human ingenuity. His eventual reunion with Penelope, after years of trials, underscores themes of loyalty, patience, and domestic virtue. The Odyssey, as a narrative, explores the human condition, perseverance through adversity, the tension between desire and duty, and the moral lessons derived from trials. Odysseus' journey remains one of the most enduring explorations of adventure, strategy, and resilience in literature. The return of Odysseus and Penelope. After enduring a decade of wandering, Odysseus finally reached Ithaca. His return was not without challenge, as suitors had overrun his palace, vying for Penelope's hand and squandering his wealth. Disguised by Athena, Odysseus assessed the situation with patience and cunning, showcasing the intellect that defined his heroism. Penelope, emblematic of loyalty and wisdom, resisted her suitors through clever stratagems, including her famous weaving ruse. This act of intellect and patience mirrored Odysseus' own reliance on cunning over sheer strength. Odysseus' eventual confrontation with the suitors blended strategy, martial skill, and divine assistance. The slaying of the usurpers was not mere revenge, it restored justice and order, emphasizing the Greek ideal that rightful rule must be defended with courage and intellect. The reunion of Odysseus and Penelope symbolized the restoration of balance, home, family, and societal order. Their story underscores themes of perseverance, cleverness, and moral integrity, serving as a model for both heroism and human virtue. Odysseus' conclusion is a meditation on endurance and the intertwining of fate and human agency. His journey demonstrates that survival requires a harmony of strength, wit, and patience, echoing throughout Greek cultural memory. Hades' realm, Tartarus, Elysium, and the fields of Asphodel. The underworld, ruled by Hades, was a realm of profound complexity. Tartarus housed the wicked and condemned, while Elysium offered peace and reward for the virtuous. The fields of Asphodel provided a neutral resting place for ordinary souls, reflecting Greek notions of cosmic balance and justice. Hades' role as ruler was impartial and inexorable. Mortals and immortals alike feared his domain, understanding that death was universal and that fate extended beyond mortal life. The geography of the underworld, from the rivers, Styx, and Lethe to its gates and guardians, illustrates a highly structured cosmos. The underworld was not merely a place of punishment, it was a realm of reflection, memory, and the consequences of mortal choices. Heroes often visited it through divine aid or necromantic rites, providing lessons in humility, prophecy, and mortality. Encounters with shades, spirits, and divine overseers shaped Greek imagination, teaching that life and death were inseparable, and that ethical conduct influenced one's eternal fate. The underworld thus served as both warning and moral compass. Hades' realm remains one of Greek mythology's most enduring constructs, emphasizing the inescapable intertwining of life, death, and divine order. Persephone, and the cycle of seasons. Persephone's story illustrates the interconnectedness of divine narrative and natural phenomena. Abducted by Hades, her time split between the underworld and the surface world created the seasonal cycle, blending mythology with observation of nature. Demeter, her mother, symbolizes fertility, nurturing, and life's dependence on the divine. Her grief at Persephone's absence manifested as winter, while reunion restored growth and vitality, showing myth as a metaphor for agricultural and cosmic cycles. Persephone herself embodies duality, life and death, captivity and freedom. Her narrative explores themes of transition, resilience, and negotiation with divine authority, reflecting broader Greek concerns about balance and cosmic order. The myth of Persephone also highlights the Greeks' fascination with causality and consequence, linking human experience with natural rhythms, divine will, and moral insight. Through Persephone, Greek mythology conveys the cyclical nature of life, death, and renewal, merging narrative, philosophy, and empirical observation in a single enduring tale. The mystery cults, Eleusinian, Orphic Dionysian rites. Greek mythology extended beyond epic tales into lived religious practice. Mystery cults offered secretive rites, promising personal transformation, knowledge of the afterlife, and closer communion with gods like Demeter, Dionysus, and Orpheus. The Eleusinian mysteries, centered on Demeter and Persephone, taught about life, death, and rebirth. Initiates underwent symbolic trials, gaining insight into mortality, divine order, and the promise of favor in the afterlife. Orphic traditions emphasized purification, music, and esoteric knowledge, presenting an alternative path to spiritual enlightenment. Dionysian cults celebrated ecstasy, liberation, and the dissolution of boundaries between mortal and divine, reflecting the multiplicity of Greek religious experience. These cults highlight the cultural integration of mythology, ethics, and ritual. They allowed personal engagement with mythic themes, fostering a deep, experiential understanding of cosmic principles and human responsibility. The mystery cults exemplify the adaptability of Greek mythology, showing its evolution from narrative storytelling to profound spiritual practice, linking human experience with divine knowledge. The legacy of Greek mythology and Western thought. Greek mythology has profoundly shaped Western literature, philosophy, art, and culture. Its narratives provide archetypes for heroism, tragedy, morality, and human ambition. Figures like Achilles, Odysseus, and Persephone continue to inspire storytelling across millennia. Philosophers such as Plato and Aristotle used mythic narratives to explore ethics, politics, and metaphysics, demonstrating mythology's role in intellectual inquiry. Tragedians dramatized myths to examine human nature, fate, and divine influence. Mythological motifs permeate visual arts, from vase painting to sculpture, and modern media, including literature, film, and games. Greek myths offer timeless lessons about courage, cleverness, mortality, and the consequences of choice. Through storytelling, ritual, and cultural expression, Greek mythology fosters enduring engagement with human psychology, societal norms, and cosmological speculation. Its narratives form a bridge between imagination and reflection, shaping both ancient and contemporary thought. The legacy of Greek mythology reminds us that storytelling is not merely entertainment. It is a vessel for cultural memory, ethical instruction, and exploration of the human condition. The lesser-known Olympians and their tales. Beyond the famed 12 Olympians, numerous minor gods and goddesses shaped the divine landscape. Deities like Hestia, goddess of the hearth, symbolized domestic stability and sacred ritual, embodying the quiet yet crucial aspects of life. Eileithyia, the goddess of childbirth, oversaw the transitions between life and death, her presence linking mortals with divine influence in crucial life moments. Similarly, Hebe, goddess of youth, personified vitality and rejuvenation, serving as cupbearer to the gods, and reminding mortals of the fleeting nature of youth. These lesser-known Olympians reveal the depth of Greek mythology, emphasizing that divine intervention was not limited to grand events, but permeated daily existence. Each deity's story conveys subtle lessons about morality, duty, and human experience. Through their tales, the Greeks illustrated the multifaceted nature of life, showing that balance required attention to both monumental and mundane forces, bridging the heroic and domestic spheres. The minor Olympians' narratives enriched the mythology, adding nuance and depth, reinforcing the idea that every aspect of human life, from birth to daily routines, was watched over by the divine. The Fates, and the concept of destiny. The Moirai, or Fates, are central to Greek understanding of destiny. Clotho spun the thread of life, Lachesis measured it, and Atropos cut it, determining the lifespan and ultimate fate of gods and mortals alike. These figures underscored a fundamental Greek belief. While human agency mattered, destiny was often predetermined, and hubris against divine order could have dire consequences. Their presence influenced countless myths, from the downfall of Oedipus to the triumphs of heroes like Achilles. The Fates embody moral and cosmic lessons, illustrating that actions are bound within a larger framework of consequence. Their impartiality emphasizes fairness and inevitability, inspiring reflection on choices and accountability. Greek stories of mortal interaction with the Fates often portray tension between free will and predestination, providing dramatic tension while imparting philosophical reflection. The enduring concept of fate in Greek mythology resonates today, influencing literature, philosophy, and culture, reminding audiences that life is a balance between choice and cosmic order. Monsters and mythical creatures. Greek mythology teems with creatures embodying fear, chaos, and moral lessons. From the Chimera to the Hydra, these monsters often symbolize human challenges, societal threats, or the darker aspects of nature. The Cyclops, one-eyed giants, represent brute strength, devoid of reason, often defeated through cunning rather than force alone, teaching that intellect can triumph over raw power. Sirens lure sailors to destruction, reflecting the dangers of temptation and distraction. Creatures like Scylla and Charybdis embody environmental hazards, mythologized as divine punishment or cosmic trial, reminding humans of mortality and the consequences of hubris. Monsters also serve as catalysts for heroism. The slaying of the Nemean lion by Heracles, or the defeat of the Minotaur by Theseus, emphasizes courage, skill, and divine favor. By interacting with these beings, mortals and heroes explore themes of fear, morality, and the limits of human capacity, enriching Greek narratives with excitement, danger, and philosophical insight. Myths of love, tragedy, and transformation. Greek mythology is rich with tales of love and tragedy, often intertwined with divine caprice. Stories like Orpheus and Eurydice illustrate the power of love and the inevitability of loss, blending emotion with moral lessons. Psyche and Eros, though more Romanized in later texts, mirror similar Greek sensibilities, devotion, trials, and transformation, highlighting that love is a path of both joy and suffering. Transformative myths, such as Daphne turning into a laurel tree or Arachne becoming a spider, explore the consequences of pride, divine wrath, and moral choice. These metamorphoses symbolize lessons encoded in physical change. The intersection of love, punishment, and transformation communicates Greek ideas about human vulnerability, divine influence, and the balance between passion and prudence. Through these narratives, the Greeks explore the spectrum of human emotion, creating myth as both mirror and teacher, blending aesthetics with ethical guidance. The enduring appeal of Greek mythology, even millennia after their creation, Greek myths continue to captivate. Their themes of heroism, morality, divine caprice, and human resilience remain universally resonant. Modern literature, cinema, and art frequently draw from these stories, demonstrating their adaptability and timelessness. Figures like Achilles, Medusa, and Persephone appear in countless reinterpretations, showing the myth's ability to evolve with culture. Their appeal lies in the universality of the experiences they describe: love, loss, ambition, fear, and the search for meaning. The human condition is reflected in divine narratives, making them perpetually relevant. Greek mythology's narratives provide moral, philosophical, and psychological lessons while offering entertainment, imaginative richness, and cultural cohesion. By studying and retelling these myths, each generation connects with ancient thought, ensuring that the stories of gods, heroes, and mortals continue to inspire curiosity, reflection, and creativity. Conclusion: the eternal influence of myth. Greek mythology's scope is vast, from primordial chaos to heroic exploits, divine conflicts, mortal ambition, and the mysteries of the afterlife. Each story contributes to an intricate tapestry of human understanding, divine narrative, and ethical reflection. The myths collectively explore themes of fate, justice, courage, ingenuity, love, and mortality, providing lessons as relevant today as they were in antiquity. The gods' influence and the hero's choices mirror human experience, inviting reflection on our own ethical and existential dilemmas. By blending narrative, philosophy, and ritual, Greek mythology creates a framework for interpreting the cosmos, society, and the self. Its stories inspire curiosity, moral contemplation, and aesthetic appreciation, demonstrating the enduring power of imagination. From epic battles and tragic love to divine schemes and mortal ingenuity, Greek mythology offers a comprehensive exploration of existence. Its continued relevance attests to the universality of its themes and the richness of its cultural legacy. The enduring influence of Greek mythology ensures that its tales will continue to resonate, educating, entertaining, and inspiring generations across time, serving as both mirror and map of the human experience. From the primordial chaos to the cunning of Odysseus, from the wrath of Zeus to the tragic fates of mortals, every myth carries lessons, warnings, and wonders that continue to resonate even today. Greek mythology is not just a collection of stories, it is a timeless mirror of human ambition, love, hubris, courage, and curiosity. Whether it's the bravery of Heracles, the cleverness of Perseus, or the tragic destinies of Oedipus and Orpheus, these tales remind us that our struggles and triumphs are part of a larger, eternal narrative. If you've enjoyed exploring the full spectrum of Greek mythology, from the birth of the cosmos to the legacy of the gods and mortals, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into history, myths, and legends that shaped the world. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an immersive journey through time and myth. Share this video with friends who love history, mythology, or epic stories. You never know who might be inspired by the lessons of the ancient world. And if you want to go even deeper, leave a comment below telling us which myth or hero fascinated you the most. Your favorite stories might inspire our next video. The myths live on, and so does our curiosity. Thank you for watching, and remember, the gods, heroes, and legends of Greek mythology aren't just stories of the past, they're reflections of all of us. waiting to be explored again and again.